Hi, welcome back to Just Living Designs. This time I am here to show you how I like to do a Kitchener stitch. Now, a Kitchener stitch is a way that you can use to close a toe. In this case, that's what I'm using it for. You can use it to close an afterthought heel. You can use it for seaming up any other types of knitwear, including like the top of a hat. There's lots of different ways that you can use the Kitchener stitch. How I'm going to show you today is when it's on a stockinette project. So where the stockinette side is out, and when you look down, you're kind of looking at the purl, the inside of the sock. So this technique that I'm showing to you today will only be useful if you have stockinette all the way around. So what you will need to do is you cut a length of your yarn. I usually do about a foot. I never usually use a whole foot, but I always like to have more yarn than you need. And then you'll need a tapestry needle. I like these little bent ones. I think they work really well. And you're just going to thread your yarn end onto your needle. And so I always kind of either hold my knitting so I'm kind of looking at it this way, or even like this sometimes, especially when I'm going to that back needle. And I will refer to it as the front needle and the back needle. I worked my sock in magic loop. You can do this with any other type of knitting style. You just want to have your stitches separated out onto two needles. So if you did use DPNs, instead of having like the 3 or 4 needles still, you'd want to have half your stitches on one needle and half on the other. All right, and so I'm going to go through and show you kind of how I do this. And I will say, kind of speak through it the whole way through. And there is usually a setup for the beginning of the Kitchener stitch, and I omit it. And I omit it because it decreases the little dog ears that can happen. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into this first stitch on the front needle as if to knit and slip it off. And then I'm going to go into that second stitch as if to purl and leave it on and pull my yarn through. And then I'm going to come to the back needle, and you want to make sure your yarn always kind of comes under the needles. And I'm going to go through that first stitch as if to purl and slip it off. And then I'm going to go through that second stitch on the back needle as if to knit and leave it on and pull the yarn through. You can see right away it's a little loose because it's straight off the stitch, but that will tighten up. And then we'll just continue those steps until we get all the way to the end. So first needle, go into the first stitch as if to knit, off. Second stitch as if to purl, on. Back needle as if to purl, off. As if to knit, on. And when I pull my yarn through, I'm just trying to keep the tension as equal as I can to what my knitting fabric was. Don't pull too tight, don't pull too loose. Back to the front, knit off the first stitch, purl on the second stitch, purl off the back, knit off, purl off, sorry, knit on. I always front needle, knit off, purl on, back needle, purl off, knit on, knit off, purl on the front needle, move to the back, purl off, knit on, front needle, knit off, purl on, back needle, purl off, knit on, like I said, just keep doing the same movements all the way down. knit off the front, purl on, purl off the back, knit on, knit off the front, purl on, purl off the back, knit on, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. And now we have 2 stitches remaining per needle. I'm going to do the same thing, knit off the front, purl, leave it on, purl off the back, knit, leave it on. And some people will have you go through and do another little knit off and purl off on, or purl, yeah, knit off and purl off on those needles. I don't. I just slip them right off at this point because they have yarn going through them. And that's another way to get rid of those dog ears that can happen. So you can see now we have, it basically makes a row of knit stitches to seal the front and back your toe together. Put my needles down. And so what I usually do to get rid of that final little dog ear that can happen just because it's a looser stitch at the end is I will just go through and kind of catch a little bit of the knitting, and then I'll go ahead and pull the needle all the way through, because you're going to flip your sock inside out anyways to sew in your ends when you're all the way done. And when you do that, you just kind of tug on that end and it will keep everything nice and neat. And there you go, that's the Kitchener stitch, and that's how I like to finish off all my top down socks. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Happy knitting!